Welcome to Rehash, a Web3 podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of Rehash. I'm your host, Diana Chen, and in this episode, we'll be talking all about trust-producing art, NFT culture, and a lot more with Karsen Daily, founder of NFT Affirmations and the creator and artist behind a crypto art project called 27 Times. Welcome, Karsen. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I almost just said welcome. I haven't done a podcast in so long, so I'm like, I might be out of pocket today. Just tell me what my max cap of like swear words are and things like that.
No cap to anything. Be completely unfiltered. You've got your wine there, so I think you're fully ready for this.
It's, to be fair, it's 6 p.m. where I am right now. So
Yes. Yeah. She's calling in from Manchester City. I know the Breves because I've been watching a lot of Ted Lasso. 2 years late to the game, but better late than never. Karsen still got to get on it. I'm so excited to chat with you about everything that you've been working on. I'm obsessed with your projects, and I just want to know more about them. Before we dive in, though, for people who don't know who you are, and guys, this is not to be confused with the guy you see on TV, Karsen Daily. This is Karsen with a K and Daily, like Daily. Maybe do you want to start with where you got your name from?
That's so funny. I was just doing a prep question round with my boyfriend as I was getting ready, and he asked me that question. But actually, the story, I wish it was better, but all of my screen names used to be Mother of Pearl because Pearl's my dog, who is Pearl aggressively scratching right now at the counter. She's obsessed with the food here in the UK. But I was during COVID, during quarantine, I had one of those Bluetooth karaoke microphones, and I was doing karaoke every single day on my Instagram story, drinking wine. And one day I was just like, okay, you know what time it is. We are doing karaoke with Karsen daily during quarantine. And the next day somebody was like, Karsen Daily, that's sick. And I looked on like Instagram, Twitter, everything, and it was available. Like the way that I wanted to spell it, like daily is in days of the week, and the way that my name is spelled. And I just jumped on it and rebranded, and now I've built my entire personality around it. And I tell everybody that you can't go a week in crypto without Karsen Daily.
I love that. We need some sound effects here.
I know.
That's awesome, and I can't believe that handle wasn't taken.
I know.
I guess it's kind of a unique way of spelling your name, but it's not like that weird or like that unusual.
I know. It was like because that whole time I was trying to go through like a rebrand. I was like, I can't go by Mother of Pearl. It was like Clubhouse days and quarantine, and I was, newly into like learning about Web3. I was like, I kind of need something. And like I went by Superplastic Karsen a lot on a lot of other like social channels and stuff. And I was like, I need something that feels like ownable. And that was it. And it's just stuck ever since.
I love it. And speaking of Superplastic, tell people a little bit about your background, people who don't know you. What were you doing before Web3? And then how did you initially learn about Web3 and get so deep down the rabbit hole?
Yeah, I'll try to give the abridged version of this story. But when I was fresh out of college, I was hired by a company called Superplastic, which at the time was a startup character-based product company. So collectible toys, vinyl, think like Cause, Bear Brick, Metacom, Funko Pop, all of those. And the founder of the company, Paul Budnitz, founded a company previously about 10 years earlier called Kid Robot. And Kid Robot was really responsible. Kid Robot is given a lot of credit for bringing collectible art toys to mainstream pop culture in the US. And he is just a super genius. And this company was based in Burlington, Vermont, where I'm from. And I was fresh out of college, and I was just really like, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like they were hiring for a director of marketing. I was not qualified for that job, but I applied and like flexed a lot, basically wrote this whole entire lie on my cover letter, but was hired eventually and started as a marketing assistant and copywriter. I used to write the toy descriptions and come up with these like character narratives. And I was employee number 3 there. So I really just got to sit side by side with Paul and learn all about, collectibles and psychology of collecting and art toys. I learned a ton about street art and graffiti artists and just like sneakers, everything, all of these things around pop culture that I loved. And I went on to have a lot of different titles at Superplastic, but my last position there was director of brand development. So I was responsible for just finding new avenues for the Superplastic animated character universe and the products and just the brand itself. And one of those avenues was a drop with Nifty Gateway, which I, worked with the team to create this fully holistic like community and marketing and sales strategy. And it was all brand new for us. But I think I took the red pill or whatever and got like so deeply obsessed and just quit my job one day after almost 3 years there and went out on my own. And here I am.
That is so cool. I actually didn't realize that you didn't have a background in art. For some reason, I just thought that you based on like your projects and what you're working on, that was what your background was in, but it was actually in marketing, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I've always been a writer, and I think like so many, one of the stories that we learn a lot about or that we hear a lot about in crypto art and in Web3 and blockchain art is that, artists were getting these jobs as graphic designers or freelance designers, or, their art and their talent was really being commodified, for these commercial industries and corporations. And, it took me a long time to realize that, like, I actually think that that's the same for me when it comes to writing. Like, I've always loved writing. And like I said, I would write product copy and descriptions and captions and all of these, stories that felt like art to me, but they had this goal to sell a product or to sell the brand or the characters. And it just, now that I finally realize, like, okay, there is a use case for, self-sovereignty and blockchain technology for all of these different like art verticals and styles outside of, graphic design, visual arts, and 3D art as well. So I'm excited to see like how more people and from more creative industries that are kind of facing that same challenge, how they break the mold and utilize this technology for their own kind of personal liberation.
Super cool. Yeah, I totally agree that writing and storytelling can absolutely be a form of art. There's, no like right or wrong way to do it. And there's so many different ways to be creative with it, to be an effective storyteller. It's really like not straightforward at all. And it takes a lot of creativity. Yeah. So tell me about 27 Times. This is your Genesis drop, your first NFT collection that you dropped earlier this year. It is such a cool concept. So for people who aren't familiar with it, tell them what 27 Times is, what's the concept, and like how you got the idea for it.
Oh my gosh. Again, I'll try to give the abridged version, but such a long story. I have a habit of like overcomplicating things, but for the sake of like philosophy. And what better place to do that than on the blockchain where we have like real, technical provenance. But so as I said, I've always been a writer, and, during in quarantine during COVID, I really got back into writing for myself. Like I said, I spent a lot of my days writing for work and for Superplastic. And at the same time, I was going through a lot personally. Like my dad had passed away. My best friend died in a car accident 2 months later. I ended a 4-year relationship where I was engaged. My grandfather passed away a couple months after that. And for the first time in my life, I was living by myself and seeing nobody ever because we were all in lockdown. So I started writing poetry again. And as I was getting into kind of Web3 and NFTs, I thought there must be a place for, poetry on the blockchain. And I saw things that, I saw like Digital Art Chick had done Ether poems, which I thought was really cool, but I hadn't seen a lot of other kind of case studies or use cases. So I, had really started like marinating this idea of like how I was going to release my poetry as NFTs. And also it was getting to be at a time where I think, a lot of my own kind of personal identity and a lot of who people like the understanding or like consumption of who I was within the space was kind of being, it was a little bit muddy. Like I felt like I was being put into this like influencer category and people were, I was having a hard time just like having control over like what my own narrative was. And also I think I was leaning into that identity and that persona a little bit too much, that I was even losing sense of who I was. So I set myself this goal deadline of my birthday, my 27th birthday, and I created this concept to mint 27 original poems. And I wanted it to also, provide a commentary on the NFT space. And I thought, there was a lot of conversation and, around floor and utility and just like all of the PFP craze, and just feeling like we were not staying true to like the promise of Web3 and of decentralization, which is self-sovereignty. And sovereignty is the denouncing any systems that have power over you. And I think collectors in a lot of ways are holding power over artists, and it's making it really, I've seen that artists are having a really hard time creating for themselves and creating and being happy to create, because there's just so much pressure from their collectors. And I wanted to provide value to collectors, but I needed my own space and my own kind of flexibility to do that. So with 27 times, the NFT themselves, the Genesis NFTs, are non-transferable except on 27 days in the first year, which are also the days that title the poems. And the kind of trust-producing art concept that I came up with is that, because the blockchain is a protocol that can't be broken. So nobody can, sidestep or go around this. They must hold these NFTs and they can't sell or transfer them. The trust in like believing that I'm still going to continue to provide value to them, despite that they can't, move these around, and kind of threaten my own security as an artist by doing that, is that I was going to promise them airdrops of new art on those same exact days. So if you hold it, then your reward is this new piece of artwork. And so far, yesterday was actually the third airdrop date. And so far, none of my collectors have sold. There's been no secondary market sales, and none of them have even sold their airdropped art pieces either, which are free to do anything that they want. So it's been awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's so much thought that went into that. And I think it's so cool that you've taken this like kind of like, cold and unemotional concept of blockchain technology and really applied it in a very human way. I think that's like something that is really missing from the space, is that like that technology or robot to human connection. I really haven't seen too much of that. And I think it's so cool and beautiful the way that you were able to do it with 27 times.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think people tend to forget that like humans, like it's called machine learning and artificial intelligence, because like we teach the machines, because we are the intelligence that is then integrated into these tech structures. And like, we talk about the blockchain being a trustless, a network, a trustless economy. And trustless is the kind of distribution of trust. It removes the like single actor mediaries. And I think that what we have to remember is that like, if we really want to truly like leverage the technology and the values of having like trustless economies and kind of what the benefits are of that, we have to be trustworthy people. Like it also, the hygiene of the emotional hygiene and the emotional integrity of the people that are utilizing and teaching this technology like has to be there. And I really just feel like we're losing sight of it. And, after my drop, a lot of people reached out to me to ask me about the non-transferable kind of like the transfer limitations in those non-transfer protocols. And it made me really anxious and nervous, because I could see how very quickly it's possible that practice with the technology could be utilized to spin false narratives and to create a story about a PFP project or an NFT or a community. That's just not true. So I told everybody that as long as the philosophy is behind it, like it has to be justified for the right reasons. But I still wouldn't be surprised if people start to, misuse the technology, because they already have been.
Yeah, for sure. I think the like prevailing narrative out there in the NFT world is still one of trading and, like price go up, and people like caring to make a quick buck off of it instead of really understanding the philosophy behind it, which is so much more beautiful and I think impactful long term if we can really get out of our heads with just money and prices and think about like other utilities for it. So just to sort of rehash the mechanics of 27 times now that we understand the philosophy behind the project. So there are 27 27 poems.
27 one of one. Yep, 27 poems that are one of one NFTs. Sorry. Yes.
And there's an artwork. So it's a poem attached to an artwork, right?
Yeah, so that's the other piece of it that I forgot to mention is that the other piece for me and that like kind of because this whole this like exercise was so disarming, like these were like my best friend Megan, who a lot of people know as Metaverse Meg, like she and I met like early on into my embarking into the Web3 and like into my own world, and she is my best friend. I mean, she had never read these poems until they were minted. Like that's how deeply personal they were to me. So the collaborative nature of it, it's like I always knew I wanted to collaborate because my own journey and expansion into Web3 and into NFTs has been rooted in community, like true community that can never be recreated. Like, even the people who supported me like early on into my journey, like, Blau and Thank You X and like Lady Phoenix and like Josie, people that I was like learning from, they didn't even know, like Josie Bellini, like people didn't even know I was learning from them, but they fostered this sense of true understanding of like what the possibility is of this space. And I always wanted this to be an exercise that was rooted in community, because at that point, if I knew that 27 artists who were my friends, like that's why they agreed to collaborate with me, because we were actually friends. If I was able to just share a poem with each one of them and have them love it enough that they were inspired to create a piece of artwork from that poem using it as a prompt, like that's such a win for me. And just like, it almost felt like for every poem, like I had somebody like holding my hand to then like deliver it into the world and put it on the blockchain. So the poems themselves have been stylized as like a beautiful, amazing piece of artwork. But then they were given to these artists to then create something inspired by it with no revisions or feedback or anything. And after the auction closed, there was a reveal mechanism and the metadata updated. So now the two pieces of artwork, the poem and the visual art, are, intrinsically connected forever on chain.
That is so cool. That's so cool.
That's awesome.
That is so cool. So now that, you've launched this project that you've been working on and thinking about for so long, reflecting back on the whole process, what are your overall feelings about it? Was there anything that was really surprising to you? And also, I'm curious to know, like, what was it like dropping something so personal and private in such a public manner?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think, the lesson that there's a couple things that I'm the most grateful for. One is like, as always with anything that I do, I'm just so grateful and like so surprised that I am able to do these things. Like somehow, for whatever reason, like whatever wires exist like in my brain, like it's just due. There's no try. It's just like figure it out. And like Megan and I always joke, like Megan went to Cal Poly, so she's heard this a lot, but our motto for our agency and like in our friendship and in life is learn by doing. And like if we want to do something, like we want to edit this video, or we want to create this thing, or we want to, figure out how to utilize this technology in like a real empathetic and like intentional way, we just do it. And I think it's really remarkable to see all those things come to life. Like there wasn't a single thing that we had to like kind of like, crumble up and throw in the bin and be like, fuck it, we can't do that. Like we just figured out how to do everything, which is amazing. And then, the second piece was that one of the things, like one of my real like KPIs and the things that I was really committed to disrupting with this drop is like this idea or this like, classification that I was like an influencer. Cause I was like I want people to see that like I'm an artist and I also am like a creative and I have a real deep understanding of how this technology works. And this is my way of proving this. And like, I'm a human and like, here are all the pieces of like how to prove that. And, I realized that like, once the auctions actually ended, most of the people who collected my Genesis collection, I had never spoken to. Like I had no idea they were. Like I think I had this idea that I would know, like my friends would, or like people who I knew or who I had been spending time with in the space that I knew as collectors would collect my work because it's me, like, which is a really, I think like, kind of narcissistic way of thinking, which like I'm taking ownership of, but like, the people who collected, I was like, I reached out. I think at first I was kind of scared and like generally distrusting. And once I reached out and spoke to them, they were like, yeah, I've been following you for a while. And like, I loved this thing that you did and this thing that you did. But like, this is so much different. Like, and just to see the side of you, like, I'm so grateful for it. And like, that was amazing because without kind of that, identity that I had created, these people wouldn't have been a part of that journey for whatever reason and then bringing us together. So I would say, that was like really a remarkable feeling and a remarkable experience that I'm super grateful for. And then, how does it feel afterward? Like, oh my God, I was so fucking tired again. Like the burnout is like so real and it's scary, but I'm at this point, I do feel like a sense of relief that like the only real people that like I have to truly like worry about or think about or create for are like my 27 collectors, and they seem to be happy like almost 2 months later now. So yeah, it's like I'm just kind of figuring out like what can I do next? Like how can I, and now I think I have more trust with them now that we've been through 3 airdrops and nobody's sold. Now I'm like, okay, I really want to start to create like some big things with this and like really invest a lot of like my time and creativity to like make this feel incredible because they're not going anywhere. Like I think at this point, like they're in it.
It sounds like the whole experience was very personally validating for you too, because you talk about like not wanting to be seen as this influencer, and we all sort of see influencers or even people, if you watch reality TV and you watch these people, you think you know who they are or, whatever,
Yeah.
but it's like you really only see one side to them. Like people that are on TV or people who are influencers, like they put out this very like on side of them and a very like specific brand, however they've chosen to brand themselves. And you, I think like through this project poured out your heart and soul, and people saw that and people really liked it, and that has to feel so validating.
It is good because it kind of feels like I like can just kind of do whatever now. It's like I poured like a bucket of like white paint over the canvas. Like I was like, whew, like, okay, I know I can go back to like, I can shit post if I want to. I can post like emotional shit if I want to. I can post poems if I want to. Like, it's nice to like kind of be free and liberated. Like, again, it gets back to that. It goes back to like self-sovereignty, and digital identity is like so much more than your PFP. Like there's so, it's really scary. I think like the more I think about, what happens when people get hacked, when people, if people have to choose between like changing their life, like with the liquidity that they could get from this PFP to then like at what cost? The cost is their sense of self and sense of identity and sense of value and worth to this larger community. Like there's so many things. And like I've spoken about this for over a year at this point, like what we learned in Web 2, with the advent of front-facing cameras and Snapchat filters and lifestyles of influencers and like that whole like sharing mentality and psychology. Like we learned so much, and I hoped that we would be in a place where together we could remember how toxic and dangerous that was, and we could heal through Web3, and we haven't, and we're not. I think we're making it really worse. And so I think in my own way, this was like 27 times was like me proving like, look, we can all take steps and we can use this technology to heal personally. And then when we are healed people, we show up in community to bring more healing and to promote healing, together. So
I love that so much. I want you, I mean, I hope you're going out there and just telling this to everybody, because we need so much more of this kind of thinking and more people like you in the space.
Thank you.
But moving on to a bit of a more lighthearted note, another project that you created and launched is called NFT Affirmations. And this is kind of like a fun little project with all these. It's not so much about like the artwork itself as it is about the messaging on it. And there's like, I don't know, like I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but like what are some examples of like the affirmations that are on it?
There's so many. There's like there's some about like, the first thing I do, one of my favorite, the floor means nothing when you're looking at the stars is a favorite. I'm too hot to pay federal income taxes. The Cock Fosters invited me to Christmas, like all kinds of just like ridiculous things. A lot of them are things that like, really were like, are actually like cherry picked like from Twitter feeds. Like I call it a crowdsourced project because, it's just really meant to be like, it was meant to capture kind of the culture and the sentiment of the crypto space at the time. And I think, again, that's another one where I learned so much. And I think I was really like, I kind of felt like I was, I got like axed from the knees up a little bit, because it happened I released the project at a time where like the PFP wave was really like taking over. And I had never considered like what it would feel like to, when utility, when moon, like floor, all this shit. And like, people were going into Discord and posting like, oh, I got this font, like says ultra rare. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I thought that I was creating something that was like truly non-fungible, where like what the message would mean something different depending on who saw it and who held it. And I think, again, it was like, I think it was definitely a project that was ahead of its time. And, at the same time, it was released with 3 other people. I'm going to grab Pearl because she's being really rude. It was released with, here's Pearl, with 3 other people who, I think that none of us, people aren't prepared to become company founders overnight. When you launch a project, and really when that project is launched, like out of passion and creativity and friendship, you don't realize like just how much of a burden that becomes, all of those things. And, I'm really proud that we were able to recently like come together and make a decision to, stop the mint. And we stopped the mint at 3,000 affirmations. And now we've all kind of mutually agreed to like go our separate ways and to provide utility and real utility and access and benefits to affirmations holders in whatever capacity individually that we want to, without feeling like anybody is being taken advantage of or taking advantage of the others. But again, like just meant to be fun. And I think when money gets involved, people, stop having fun. Like a lot of people were like, oh, you made X amount of ETH off of that. Like, what are you doing with it? And I was like, I wrote 10,000 affirmations. Like I worked on this. Like this was my job. Like I've reinvested it. Like I've thrown parties, and I've paid for like I've paid to like produce merch and stickers and these things, and like bought from artists within the community. Like people just it feels. I think that was the thing that really like made me open my eyes to like what's really a lot of the issues that exist within like the NFT ecosystem and space, is that like not everybody is here having fun. And if they're not having fun, they want to make sure that nobody else is having fun either. So yeah. I'm going to drink. I'm going to have a sip.
Drink to that. Have a sip of your wine. I think everyone just comes into this space with different motivations. And I think a different sense of what this is all about. Like, I think, like you were saying before, you were lucky to have really good mentors like Josie Bellini, who helped you understand what all of this is actually about. But I think a lot of people who might just find out about NFTs through, I don't know, like popular Web2 media and everything, all the talk, like everything that's written about is about the prices and how the price is like soaring through the sky. It's insane. Or now like the price has dipped so much and it's not worth anything and crypto is dead and all of these things. And I think that gives people a different sort of mindset or motivation when they come in. And like even recently I met an artist who, like, I bought one of his art pieces, and it's sort of just this cool, I just thought the art was cool. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna like become a millionaire off of this or anything. So I bought one, and I met him, and I was like, oh my God, you're the guy that like did this art project. Like, I got one, and it's like so cool. And he was like, oh, thank you. And then he was like, he like got kind of defensive and apologetic and was like, I swear there's something more coming here. Like, it's not just this. And I was like, oh my God, no. Like, I just thought the art was cool. I don't care. Like, I mean, great if something else is coming. Like, cool. I'm excited. But like, I'm excited for you, and I'm excited to be part of that. But also, like, I have zero expectations. Like, don't feel like you have to build something just for the sake of building it or making people like not angry about it. Like, I want this no matter what. Like it doesn't matter. But, and so that was exactly like, he had the same mindset that you were talking about, where artists, I feel like they feel that they owe something to the community more than just the art itself. And while community is really a big part of why a lot of people come into this space, it's not the only reason. It's not sort of like there are so many ways you can create art and so many reasons you can create art, and artists should really like feel more comfortable with just creating art.
This is something that like my boyfriend and I have talked about a lot, is that when you build a community, like when based around your art, around your brand, like the experience that we both have had, but you feel like you don't even want to enter that Discord, and you don't even want to check the notifications for that page or whatever. Like, when you are like stripped of the excitement and ambition to like continue on because of how just like aggressive and demanding and mean people are. Like, people just, they don't get it. Like, it feels worse than like, even just thinking about like when I worked at Superplastic, like there would be times when toy box would be damaged, or maybe there was like a misprint on a product, and maybe one janky had 2 left arms, or their accessory was broken or whatever. Like, things happened, and of course customers and the community would be upset and disappointed, but we were able to fix it. Like, we'd be like, oh shit, sorry. Or like, if there were delays, like, they'd be bummed, but it wouldn't, like, somehow, I just don't understand how we got to a point where like, it just became such a demand. Like, where is the autonomy, I think, and like, who is really in charge here? Like, that has scared me off a lot.
Yeah. So I guess with that, like, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on like how we can sort of shift this mentality or this culture that's been created, because there are, I feel like even in this conversation, we've talked about all sides of Web3 culture. Like, there's the good, the bad, the ugly. But like, what can we do differently to make this space like more positive vibes only and more like people who are in it for the right reasons?
Oh my God, it's such a hard question. Like, I don't know, because I feel like I have tried in so many ways where I'm like, it's not working. I think like we have to focus on micro approaches, and like, my focus at this point is like even less like about onboarding people into like the NFT space, but like onboarding creatives, like in professional positions, like graphic designers, web designers, like product designers. Like, I think focusing on product building, like, this is what, kind of what's next for me. I think a lot of people are going to realize that I'm going to kind of fall behind the scenes a little bit, because I have now done a lot of work to build communities, and, it kind of is the same thing, and it's exhausting, and there's a lot of really incredible elements to building community, but there's a lot of bullshit and a lot that really just makes you want to, run away and rug forever, truly. But we need to start like building product that speaks to people that are of like a higher level of sophistication and understanding of culture and technology, and bring them in that way. Like this is, products are what make people understand processes, I think, and systems. Like, even in the Web 2 and traditional product world, I think some young people like might have entered into like marketing or like advertising roles and positions and tried to say like, okay, we want to spend $10,000 to have this influencer promote our product. And an older, boss or CEO or managing partner might have been like, that seems like a waste of money. We could do X, Y, and Z with it. But then there would be tools like Grin or Upfluence or Shopify or even, Facebook Ads Manager that would show like, here's the return of investment on that $10,000. Here's a tool that shows you like that shows you why a decision was justified and validated and how it promoted your brand or your product or got you closer to your goal. And then all of a sudden, those managing partners or CEOs or whatever that were in those positions that didn't quite understand what that younger, more entry level or mid-level executive was talking about, all of a sudden they got it because they didn't have to understand why it worked or the psychology behind why it worked. They just had to see that the money was well spent and that the effort was well put. So I think like that's kind of where my mind is now shifting to, that like we have to stop trying to like bring people in to be like, oh my God, you can sell your art this way, or you can, make money this way, and you can quit your job this way. Like you can be part of a community this way. Like all those things will always exist. That will always be true. Like what we have to do now is like build product to show like how this is, part of improving their quality of life and like their security and safety and liberty and agency while using the internet. I think that's kind of where we're headed right now.
Yeah, and that's probably a big part of marketing and storytelling and branding in Web3 too, right? Which, speaking of, actually, I'd love to hear your thoughts on, like, what do you see as being some of the biggest differences between marketing in the Web2 world versus marketing in the Web3 world?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. I think, people in the like Web3 world kind of have this like data paralysis, where there's like so much data. There's so much data available that because it's all happening on the blockchain, where it's like a transparent ledger, that people don't really know where to start and how to like qualify and quantify and really analyze that data. So I think they're having a hard time making real informed decisions when it comes to marketing, which I am the same at this. Like people will either do too much or do too little when it comes to Web3. And, I think Web2 is very focused on data and kind of on analytics and insights. So this is a big difference in marketing. And I also think that just like people in this, like somehow collective consciousness is changing in the way where like in Web 2, like Gen Z and, particularly Gen Z consumers, there was a study done where they would have to see a product like 5 times through 5 different verticals within their like inner to like most outer social circles. And usually like 3 of those circles included some type of influential person or famous person that they did or didn't know. But I think in Web3, I feel that people are being a lot more impulsive, and that really only takes kind of a person of like a certain kind of funnel or character persona bucket, whatever that is, for them to make decisions. So, I'm wondering kind of when that starts to shift. I think that on both sides that should be shifting, and it makes sense that, Gen Z hasn't really entered this space yet because there hasn't been enough repetition and kind of recognition from their kind of inner to most outer circles. So I don't know. I don't know if that was a very good answer. They're all just like hypothesis, but I think data is a big piece of it. Just data.
That second, I mean, both points were really interesting. And I think definitely there's something there. That second piece is something that I've been thinking about too, where it's like you only need to have, one quote unquote influencer, just like somebody on crypto Twitter with a lot of followers that everybody knows. One of those people to say something, and it's like everyone takes that as like the Bible and like the ultimate truth.
Oh
And
my God, seriously.
That's, both. It could be good, like that's a marketer's dream or a company's dream, is like you just need one person to say something good about your company or your product, and there you go, like so much money made. But on the flip side, it's super scary because what if this person says something that actually isn't right or isn't good or isn't or is toxic and harmful to people, and everybody takes that as the truth and runs with it. And I think we have seen this happen on crypto Twitter multiple times. I think anybody who's on Twitter a lot can think of some, at least a handful of examples of this.
So true. So true. I think there's such a loss of ownership over like your brand's messaging and story, and like it's just dangerous too. Like I've had people tell me that they bought into a project because they saw that I followed it. Like that's so like that amount of kind of like sheepish kind of herd mentality is really dangerous, I think, in any avenue, especially when it comes to money, especially when it comes to product and crypto, even more so. So hopefully, we find a good balance and we can kind of start to understand more around behavioral patterns in the space. But we shall see. Until then, I will drink wine and mind my own business.
Totally. Yeah. I think diversity probably plays a big role in that too. I think just by making the space more diverse, you bring in people with different thoughts and different perspectives, and that should help sort of like tone down the sheeps.
We can have a whole episode on that, I'm sure.
I know. I'm sure. All right. Well, thank you so much, Karsen, for coming on. Do you have any final thoughts to share that we didn't get to talk about yet?
No, I'm just like, it's exciting to be kind of like back and like having conversations with awesome people, and I love to see obviously women like making like trailblazing in the space. And I think content is a missing piece here as well, like having content that is truly like, that has passionate people and that has new ideas. Like it just feels like the same shit over and over again. So I'm happy to be here, and hopefully I brought up something, at least one or two new ideas to anybody that's listening.
So many things. This was just such an uplifting podcast. Yay, and I really hope that people hear this and really have like a good think about how do we humanize this new awesome technology that we have and really like do good with it, instead of making the same mistakes we made in the past and turning this into like real life black mirror.
Much opportunity here. So much opportunity, way more than financial. So 100%. We'll leave them with that. But thank 100%. You so much. I'd love to come back anytime.
Oh my God, please. And then before you go, tell people where they can find you if they don't already follow you, and where people can go to learn more about like 27 Times if they want to check that out, or like have a good laugh and check out some NFT affirmations.
Well, affirmations will forever live on OpenSea and the secondary market there. They are memorialized. 27 Times, you can learn more at 27times.xyz, 27 like numeric. I am Karsen Daily, KarsenDaily on Twitter and Instagram, and karsendaily.eth on TikTok. I don't really know how much I'm doing on TikTok, but whatever. And you can always email me, say what's up, Karsen@karsendaily.com. And yeah, I'm around. DMs are open, as they say, but it does take me 7 to 15 business days to get back to anybody. So.
I'll give you guys a little secret. Message her about some blueberry facials for dogs, and she'll get back to you quickly.
Yes, exactly.
That's a secret word.
You have to, something has to catch my eye. I'll be like, what? Anyways, yeah, I'll be there.
Thank you so much, Karsen. Enjoy your new life in the UK. And we will talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Rehash. If you enjoyed this conversation and want to get involved in helping shape next season of the podcast, including nominating and voting on your favorite guests, go to rehash.mirror.xyz to join our crowdfund. And don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe to help us get this podcast heard by as many people as possible. Thanks for being part of this community, and I can't wait to connect with many of you in Discord and Twitter soon.